Hey guys, welcome to the Killing the Tea podcast. This is Gare,
And Kate.
and we are going to be discussing all things chills, thrills, and kills. Kate and I are going to be talking about our favorite books, TV shows, and movies that are in the thriller or crime fiction genre, as well as some reading habits and other items related to how we met on Bookstagram that will fit in with this podcast. So, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope that you have fun and get totally terrified.
Well, we're back for episode 3.
Yes, we
And this
are.
time we're going to talk about TV shows and movies. And we'll
Mhm.
see how far we go because we could talk forever about books, clearly.
I feel like we're going to be the same about movies and TV,
I
but
think so.
this might
Once
be
we
a
get
whole
going.
season.
Right.
Yeah, so Kate the
So,
Great, tell me,
oh
what
my
are
gosh.
some of the movies and TV shows
Okay.
that you are obsessed with? I guess I should have asked this earlier, but I kind of feel
Mhm.
like, let's just be organic and naturally ourselves. But
Yep.
I'm really
It's
curious to
worked so
hear,
far.
yeah, and I'm really curious to hear your list because I feel like mine are mostly from the year 2022.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, when we kind of like discussed this topic and what we were going to do with it and how like we thought this could be like a really good episode because let's be honest, like as we dive further into this journey together, we're going
Mhm.
to be discussing like books and movies on the same episode, but I figure this would be like a good introduction just to see like
Yeah.
the contrast or the similarities in our
Mhm.
reading taste and our movies
Yeah.
and television taste. So,
Yeah.
when we were discussing this, I was like, I don't know if we were only doing this year or if we were doing of all time, but
I'm fine with either. I did most of
Lent,
my list at least like this year or maybe 2021,
perfect.
but I'm sure we'll talk about other ones when we're like, "Oh, that made me think of this show." That seems to be how we roll.
Oh yeah, and we can
Yeah.
probably like give each other the whole like, don't say that because maybe that's an idea for a
Yeah.
episode down the line. So,
Yep.
all right,
Yeah.
let's kick it off. Tell me
TV
something
or movies?
you pick,
Just pick.
whatever you want.
Okay.
Tell
Well,
me whatever one in your list that is speaking most to the darkness in your heart that you just love to follow when it comes to thrillers and murder.
well. So we were both watching the Emmys last night, I think.
Yes.
Like you were
Oh
posting
yeah.
about it. Okay,
Yes.
cool.
Yeah.
And I guess I've got to give homage to my fellow sweaty banged character in Blackbird because the actors from Blackbird were on the Emmys last night and I did send you a picture and I was like, look, I clean up well, guys. So if
Larry.
people have not watched yet, I will put up a picture so that you guys can fully understand what we're talking about. But Blackbird is this really, really, really good show, and there is a creepy serial killer, or maybe a serial killer, in it. And as we were watching, my husband and I realized that sometimes my bangs looked like this guy's bangs looked the whole time. That being said, the show is fantastic and dark and twisty and amazing, but there's
Agreed.
also, a special place in my heart for Larry.
Yeah. There's always going to be a special place in my heart for Larry and his
Yeah,
bangs because of you. But I agree. That show, oof, that show just got me. It was
I know.
so good.
Yeah.
Definitely on my list as well. So we'll just
Mhm.
give that a little check mark here. But yeah, I mean, I was so wrapped up into that show. Like,
Mhm.
even I think it was like probably 10 or 15 minutes into episode one. I was like,
Yes.
wow, like that's not going to take me very long to get through this.
Right. That's how I felt because I think we watched the first 2 episodes because I think it's a 6 episode show. We
Yes.
watched the first 2 and then Tyler traveled and it was so hard for me to not watch the other episodes.
I would have
And then
died.
he got back and we watched like the other 4. But it was the same thing where like barely into the first episode, I was like, the pacing is great. The cinematography was really pretty. They had some really pretty shots actually.
Yes.
And then just like a psychological like deep dive into like befriending a possible serial killer. Just perfect.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the direction in the show, I don't even know who the director was, but I think the direction in the
Yeah.
show, like you mentioned the cinematography and everything,
Mm-hmm.
definitely reminded me of like Big Little Lies and Sharp Objects.
Yes.
Um, and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
Um, so if you live under a rock when you listen to this episode, um, Blackbird is based on a book by Jimmy Keene. It's a true story about a man who is arrested and sentenced to 10 years in prison for guns and drugs, I believe.
Yes.
Either
Yes. Yes, it's both.
or and yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
guns and drugs and all that fun stuff. He is
Yeah.
sentenced to 10 years in prison, and then they basically have the FBI come to him and
Mm-hmm.
try to make a deal with him where we will let you out early. You will not have to complete your 10-year sentence if you get a confession out of this man we believe is a serial killer.
Yeah.
And I, you know what I loved about this is
Mm-hmm.
I think we mentioned this before. If not, it's definitely something that we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved this so much and I was so into it. But it's like people are going to hear my little like brief synopsis there and they're going to be like,
Mm-hmm.
that sounds so unrealistic. But like, don't you find that the true stories are more unrealistic sounding than like fiction?
Sometimes. Yeah, I think sometimes we've gotten so used to thinking that like fiction is where like crazy stuff happens or
Right.
unexpected stuff happens. So we think like, oh, anything unexpected or that sounds like too good to believe
Hmm.
must be fiction. And that was like one of the first things I did after, like, I waited until we finished it and then I started Googling everything, and like they barely changed anything. They changed like some of the side characters, like maybe they didn't like really look like what the person looked like, but like
Right.
otherwise most of the like the important turning points are all true. I mean, from what we know, they're all true.
Yeah. Because everybody was talking about this show on
Mhm.
social media. And I was like, wow, I think I should probably check this out. And then I had a few people
Yes.
like slide into my Instagram DMs and they were like, are you watching Blackbird? You need to watch it.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And then when I looked up like the brief, excerpt as to like what it was about, I was like, wow, this actually sounds really good. But I
Yeah.
was one of the people that was like, this sounds really good. It sounds like it would be a good book. And then I
Mhm.
realized it was based on a book. And then
Yeah.
I realized that it's based on a true story. So
Right.
phenomenal,
So
phenomenal.
good. And I was glad they kept it to 6 episodes. It's another show where like they didn't stretch it out for longer than it needed to be. So like there's
Right.
something happening every single second of the show. So it's not a
Mm-hmm.
slow burn. If anyone
No.
is against slow burns, this one moves very quickly.
And it's really hard to stop because
Yeah.
not only was it like 6 episodes that were jam packed with so many amazing things,
Mm-hmm.
but whew, I mean, I feel like I don't know if I remember this correctly or if it's just
Mm-hmm.
how I felt when I was watching it, but I felt almost as though there were mini cliffhangers or little things that happened at the end of
Yes.
each episode that kind of made you not want to stop.
I agree.
Um,
Like everything
so
was
good.
like, I've got to know what's going to happen next. And they told it kind of from three perspectives, where you're getting,
Mhm.
oh, what is the main guy's? Why can't I think of his name? I can think of
Jimmy,
Larry. Jimmy. You kind of get Jimmy's perspective. You also kind of get
just so
Larry's
focused on
perspective.
Larry and his bangs. That's the
I know.
three
And Jimmy's the hot
perspectives.
one. He's the one I should remember.
Jimmy's the hot guy, but Kate's like, oh, it's three perspectives: Jimmy,
Yeah.
Larry, and Larry's bangs.
Maybe it's four then, because I was gonna say the detectives is the other one. Yeah, yeah, you're not wrong. I
Yeah,
hope
yeah.
everyone enjoys my Larry impression as much as we do.
It's probably my favorite like little inside joke with you is
Yes.
the bangs and everything and how Tyler just kind of sprung that on you. Which made me be like, wow, not only is she fantastic at being the host of a podcast, but also like, wow, there should be a reality show of you and Tyler. And
Oh
just
my gosh, don't tempt us.
when he teases you about your bangs and the humidity.
My general savagery. Yeah.
Yes.
I do have a fan on right now because I literally started getting hot. So hopefully the Larry Bangs don't make an appearance.
Yeah. Hopefully by next week it's not like back to a million degrees.
Yeah.
Which I mean is such a stretch. I live in upstate New York. Like it's
Right. It's not.
the highest it's got, I think, is like 95 this summer. But you
Yeah.
know, and everybody in like California is like, oh, it's 95 today. It's not too bad. But yeah, it's like 65 here and it's been rainy all day
Yeah.
and but it's been a little humid. So
That's what happened to us. Our rain finally stopped and it's like cool out there, but it's humid.
and I hate that.
I do too.
It's
Humidity
such
is
a
terrible.
tease. It's such a
Mm-hmm.
tease. I just
Mm-hmm.
love like a nice crisp fall day where it's like 60 to
Yes.
65 and sunny during the day and then it just really cools off to the point that you
Oh,
don't want to leave your house at night.
I know. That is the dream. I need to live
It's a
somewhere
dream.
that's that all year round.
I'll let you know when my neighbors sell their house.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not all year round, but we'll find that
I'll
place.
just move up there anyway. I mean, why not?
But we can go to Canada all the time.
Yeah. I haven't. So it'd be new for me. Well, I went once when I was a kid, but I don't really count it. Like I don't know why we went there. I think it
Yeah,
was just
I
because we were in Michigan, my grandparents, and they're like, let's go to Canada. And I was like, okay.
it's so weird too. Like people like because I've lived here my whole life.
Uh-huh.
But it's just so weird too how people just treat it like going from where I am to like Canada just to like go out to
Hmm.
dinner or like run errands and things like that. So it's just like so funny how it's just seems so normal like growing up in
Yeah.
this area and then like when I talk to people like you or like like my other friends who don't like live in this area and they're not familiar with it how they're like wait a
Yeah.
second you're going to Canada just to go grocery shopping.
You're like, yes.
Yeah, I'm out of
They
coffee
have better
creamer.
books. They have better food.
I do love the way that Canada has their
Hmm.
book set up.
I remember you telling me about it, and I was like, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, a lot of books come out in paperback
Hmm.
compared to hardcover.
Yeah.
And there's just like always great deals, like two for whatever, and
Nice.
you can get your Plum Plus reward card from Chapters Indigo. I think they're just Indigo
Oh,
now, but
nice.
and then you get 10% off. I could just go
I
on and
love
on.
it.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's our transition from
Our transition
one TV
to
show to Canada.
I know, to fall in Canada.
Yeah. But yeah, Blackbird, amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
I was like hoping
What?
that was going to be on your list because
Yeah,
I don't
definitely on
know
the list.
if I
Well, the
could.
funny story too that we didn't tell them was you and I were kind of planning podcast stuff. And I texted you and was like, you have to watch this show. I know you're going to love it. And you sent me back a picture and you were literally watching it when I texted
Yes.
you that.
Yes.
And I was
Oh my
like,
God,
oh
that's
my
so
gosh,
true. Yeah,
we are twins.
that is so funny. And I remember like because I feel like the thing is that you know me so well already that you
Hmm.
could watch like 5 minutes of a show and be like, oh my God, you would love this. But like,
Yes,
I never want to be that person that's like, oh my God, this show's great. And it's like a
I
good
know.
pilot episode and then the rest of it sucks. So I
Yeah.
was like thinking about it too, because we were kind of like talking about, you know, and our hopes and dreams of creating a podcast together. And
Hmm.
we were like, talking about just a variety of other things, which is easy for us.
Yes.
And then I was like watching the show and I was like, okay, if the first episode is good, I'm going to tell Kate, like, you need to watch this. But you beat me to it.
I beat
So
you to it.
it's
It's
just
great.
only natural that that's number one on our list for this
Yes,
episode.
I know. Do you have another TV show that you loved this year?
I have one other show that I
Okay.
could think of that kind of fits the theme of what we're
Hmm.
going with here. Um, the Pretty Little Liars original
Oh,
sin
yes. Mm-hmm.
on HBO Max is so good.
Yeah.
There's like a couple of Easter eggs in it
Oh, that's cool.
for people who watch the original show, but like if
Mm-hmm.
you did not watch the original show, you don't have to in order to watch this one and fully understand. It's a
Okay, nice.
completely new story. Um, I just think it's kind of one of those things where, they kind of took the general idea of Pretty Little Liars,
Mm-hmm.
gave it a more modern, more sinister feel. The first series was on Freeform, which like used to be
Mm-hmm.
like ABC Family. So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
now this one is a lot darker
Oh, okay.
and it's a lot more violent. It's basically like a TV show that is a slasher movie. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of like secrets that come to the surface. There's a lot of drama. There's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of like scary things.
Yeah.
A is an actual person that you see with like a creepy mask on,
Nice.
and it is not just like a keyboard warrior sending text messages to teenagers. Like this is somebody who is
Nice.
brutally terrifying. um
Man.
I like
You're
binged
selling
what
me on it. I haven't
it's
seen it
so
yet.
good. And I mean, it's perfect for like fall and winter when you're just kind of like cozying up and you want to binge watch something that's really good, but like
Yeah.
we've discussed before, not like 24 episodes a season.
Yeah.
I think it's like 8 or 10 maybe, but
Okay.
um yeah, it's basically, this one is actually about a group of girls in high school who their mothers did something when they were in high school, and it comes back to
Oh,
haunt the daughters. So you,
fascinating. I love
yeah.
that.
So you get the dual timeline, you have like a big
Oh,
cast, you have like very creepy, scary moments. There's just a lot going on. I mean, it's still a teeny bopper show at the end of the
right.
day, but it is so addictive. I could not stop watching it. I watched it when it like started, so I had to wait every week for more
Oh,
episodes.
I can't do
And
it.
it was just driving me nuts, but I also couldn't hold back from starting them when they came out because it was just so good and I loved
Right.
it. And it's been
That's
renewed for another season, so it's
so
definitely coming
that's
back.
even better. You can go into
Yes.
it knowing you'll have another one next year.
Yes. I did not know that. And the way that it ended, I was like, ooh, like that could be just a fun little way to end the show, or
Uh-huh.
there could be more coming. But
That is
I
awesome.
loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it.
Did you watch One of Us is Lying last year on Paramount Plus?
I did
It
not.
was it was it was it is I hope I'm
Karen
now I want to look
McManus,
up.
right?
Yes.
I did
Yes.
not watch it. And the only reason I did not watch it is
Hmm.
because I wanted to read the book first.
Yeah.
And then I kind of spiraled, which you know that I do. So I didn't get the book, One of Us is Lying. I got the
Yeah.
book, Two Can Keep a Secret, because
Uh-huh.
the synopsis sounded something like more kind of Pretty Little Liars, like
Yeah.
something that I'd be more into. Read that, loved it. And then I never read One of Us is Lying. So I'm a big like stickler on I
Hmm.
have to read the book before I watch the series or the movie, whatever. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm just waiting for time to read the book and then watch
Yeah.
the show. But I've heard really good things about the show.
It was really good. It's another one where like it's taking place with teenagers as like the main subject, but I think they're seniors even or juniors, one of the two. And so it is just like twisty and there are like shifting perspectives and different like takes on what's happening and like you get to kind of know all the characters and then it's just like the end is shocking. Like the whole last episode you're just like shocked the whole time. So I really liked that one a lot.
I think there's like a few books in the series too, isn't
Yes.
there? Yeah.
Yeah, it's been
So
renewed for
it
a second
definitely,
season.
okay, good. Good.
Yeah, and
I
I think she's written 3. I don't know, at least 2, but I think there are 3.
okay. Yeah. Yeah. I've
Or
definitely
she's working. on
heard
three.
really good things about the book and the show.
Yeah.
Um, and you know what though? I am always going to stand up for teeny bopper shows. I don't
Yeah.
care if it's like a group of teenagers and it's a show like made for adults, but teenagers are, like you said, like the main focus. I don't care
Yes.
if it's like I loved Dawson's Creek when I was
Yep.
growing up. I loved the OC. I loved One Tree
Yep.
Hill. I watched them all. I
Yes.
even still love Riverdale.
I was gonna ask if you watch that because I haven't started that one, but it's another one that I was thinking of.
It's so campy, but it's like it's fun and it's
Yeah.
entertaining and it's like easy to like binge. And
Hmm.
the first season, I hope nobody nobody from Riverdale here. But the first season I thought was like pretty good, pretty decent.
Yeah.
Like the mystery was good.
Hmm.
But the second season, there's like a serial killer plot
Oh
line
wow.
throughout, and it is so good. It has one of the like best, creepiest scenes that I've ever watched on TV. I'm obsessed. And then
Whoa.
the seasons, I mean, I'm pretty far behind at this point now.
Hmm.
But I've heard it's getting a little out there, but it's always
That's
going to
what I
be
heard.
it's always
Yeah.
going to be one of those shows I think that like kind of bends the rules as to like what genre it's going to be, and it
Yes.
definitely dabbles in the supernatural at
Okay.
sometimes.
Yep.
But I mean, listen, I ate up all of the seasons of the Vampire Diaries, so I can
Yes.
deal with supernatural. I can
Yeah.
deal
Oh
with
yeah.
like campy and like fun, and I don't think it takes itself too seriously, and there's a lot
That's
of eye
good.
candy. There's a ton of eye candy.
That's always beneficial.
You're reaching that point too with like shows like this where you realize that these are like people that are 25 to 30 years old playing teenagers,
Yes.
and they're hot. And
Yes.
then but it's also like the
But you
dads,
feel weird.
you do like you like feel like you're like wow, like
You're like, you're
guys,
not really a teenager.
the guys I went to high school with were not that hot when I was in high school. And then you
Yeah,
realize
me
because they're
neither.
25 to 30-year-old men playing high school
Yes.
students. And you're just
Yes.
like, okay, whatever, that's fine. Like I can still think that
Hmm.
you're hot. And
Yes.
then but it's also like the fathers are like the men that you had like crushes on when you were
Yeah.
growing up. So you're at that
Yes.
point where you're like, I want to date the 30-year-old man playing a teenager, or I want to date the dad. You just don't know.
Yes.
You
I'll
just don't
date
know.
you or your son.
Yeah, like you have a backup if things don't work out.
That's funny.
But yeah,
Oh
I mean,
my
I love
gosh.
teeny bopper shows. I
Yeah.
like I will probably be like 40 or 50 years old, if not older,
Yeah.
still just like relishing in it. I mean, I don't know. I think that growing up, you watch those shows like Dawson's Creek and things
Hmm.
like that, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and like you kind of
Yeah.
like that becomes your taste, like,
Yeah.
and it's fun to see different people create a show similar to those, but kind of doing their own thing.
Yeah.
And it's fun. I want something that's like not too heavy all the time.
Hmm.
Like sometimes you just want to like binge something that's a little corny. It's kind of like when
Yes.
you watch like a thriller on Lifetime.
Yes.
Sometimes it's going to be enjoyable and other times it's
Hmm.
going to be ridiculous, but at the end of the day, it's
And
going to
sometimes it's
entertain you.
both.
Yes,
It's
most of the
ridiculous
time
and enjoyable.
I haven't watched them in so long, but I feel like Netflix is kind of being like that too. Like
They
Netflix is
are.
doing a lot of their own original like thriller movies, and they're just
Hmm.
like a half a step above Lifetime because
Yeah.
they can swear and have naked people in them. So people are
That's a
going to
good
flock
point.
to
Yeah.
Netflix. But
Swearing at naked people definitely gets people excited. There
swearing naked people
was,
and violence, all the best
yes,
things.
put them all in one thing.
Yeah.
Did you watch Cruel Summer last year? That was 2021 as well. No?
That was
Yes.
so good.
So
I was
good.
obsessed with Cruel
I
Summer.
was
And I
so
mean,
obsessed with that one.
this is
It
like a
was everything
gentle,
was good about it. Literally everything was good.
everything was good about it. And you know what? There were a lot of things that were revealed in the last
Mm-hmm.
like episode or two. I can't remember if it was two or just one, but there were a
Yeah.
lot of things revealed at the end that I did not see coming. And I
Yes.
like to pride myself on being that person that can watch
Me too.
something and say, like, you know what, I think this is going to happen. And
Yep.
I like to be right because I'm like, wow, like if I ever find myself in a position where there's a crime happening surrounding
Yes.
me, I'm going to be able to solve this case. But at the end of
Yes.
the day, like, I also like, damn, I was right. Like sometimes you want to be shocked.
Mm-hmm.
And with that one, I was definitely
I think
shocked.
that final scene, I think it's the final scene where you're like,
Yep.
because there
Yep.
are like multiple times you think you're at the end of the episode, and then another scene happens, and you're like, holy shit. And then that final one, it
No.
was as good as In My Dreams, I Hold a Knife, in my opinion, ending
Yeah.
wise.
Yeah. That was an insane twist. At first, when you said like, oh, that final scene, I was like, oh
Mm-hmm.
shit, I don't remember what the final scene was. I
Yeah.
remember loving the show, but I don't remember all of the details because I should probably watch it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the minute you said that final scene, I was like, yep, I know exactly what you're
That's
talking about in that show.
exactly. I can't remember
Yeah,
all the other twists. I just remember thinking like, okay, wow, everything's been wrapped up. And then there was one more scene, and I was like, well, I'm gonna remember that forever.
never forget it.
Yeah, that one was amazing. And
That
what
was
made me think of it, it is another teeny bopper show, but very much like adult
dark,
themes.
dark.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like
very
that.
dark.
I like
Mm-hmm.
that. I like when because I think we've talked about this before. That's kind of like one of the things I admire about like Karen Slaughter and some authors who
Yeah,
take some of the dark and ugly things that happen in the world and
yeah,
incorporate that because at the end of the day, like yeah, Lifetime movies and some of the ones that are afraid to kind of push the envelope when it comes to those situations.
yeah,
Um, some they're afraid to do that and there are others that don't really hold back and I feel like Cruel Summer was definitely one of those shows
yes, I agree.
because they definitely without being graphic in the way they portrayed it, they definitely dove into some pretty scandalous and horrifying and disturbing things. um but they did a fantastic job with it
Yeah,
so
but
that
they
it's
really nailed like I think sometimes one of the reasons like that high school range show even feels good as an adult is it's kind of like the first time in your life that you're like trying to figure out who you are, trying to like build your self-esteem around something specific. And that can be so like confusing and overwhelming. And they like
right.
really explored like how toxic, like if it goes to the toxic extreme of not feeling accepted by your peers, what can happen basically would be my summary on the darkness.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And I love to like piggyback off what you said. I love the psychological aspect
Yeah.
of having a show where you have that teenage, younger portrayal because no matter who you are, there are ways that people can manipulate you a lot easier at that age
Mm-hmm.
than there are
Yeah.
when you're an adult. Whether
Yeah.
it's um, somebody that you're in a relationship with, your
Mm-hmm.
parents, an adult, an influencer, a celebrity, like
Yeah.
somebody that you look up to and admire, a teacher. It could be anybody. And
Mm-hmm.
the thing is they like obviously know how to manipulate people like that.
Yeah.
And like you said, you have that confusion as to like trying to figure out who you are and where you are in life, what you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and there's just a lot going on.
Yeah.
um
I think it's
but yeah.
tricky. I think also what you're saying, you're not an adult, but you feel like an adult and you really
Yep.
want the world to treat you like an adult. And so then someone can just tap into that really easily and you're actually not
Yes.
adult enough to deal with the situation that you're in.
Right.
Yeah. Did you
but
watch
you,
Yellow Jackets?
I watched the first episode and I
Okay.
really really enjoyed it, but
Yeah.
I am like I'm a mood reader but I'm also a mood watcher, so like
Yeah.
tonight when we like wrap up this episode, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if I'm going to feel like watching Law and Order. I don't know if I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
feel like watching Dawson's Creek. I don't know if I'm,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I don't know what I'm going to want to watch. So like sometimes I might watch something and be like, wow, that was really good. But then the
Right.
next night I'll be like, I'm in the mood for something different.
Yes.
So I did watch the first episode. I really enjoyed it. And
So
I
cool.
want to I just want to watch it because
Yeah,
the cast is fantastic. The storyline
so
is
great.
amazing.
Yes. Like it's another one where you're seeing them as teenagers and you're seeing them as adults. And they handle that so well. It's so cool seeing both timelines.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely
It's
loved the
really
first
good.
episode and I want to watch more of that.
That was one that I watched at the beginning of the year when I was like so sick with COVID that I couldn't move. So I like watched it in like 2 days and it made it so
I
much
could
better. I was like, this is so perfect to just like escape into. I mean, it's
Sorry.
terrifying. But I wasn't aware that I couldn't breathe very well.
You're like, what'll make me feel better being on my deathbed
uh,
with COVID is
yeah.
this terrifying tale of yellow jackets. Um, that's awesome. I no, I definitely want to watch it. I feel like I could definitely get into it because I've heard that it's very jaw-dropping, very crazy. Um, and like
Christina Ricci's appearance. Why can't I think of it? What is the word I'm looking for? Performance. Her performance is spectacular.
I've just seeing her in the trailer, you can tell that she's going to like knock it out of the park.
Yes, she's a
Um,
whole other person.
I also love Juliette Lewis. I don't care what it
Mhm.
is like that she's in. I love, love, love her. I think she's
Yes.
fantastic. Um, Melanie Linsky, I am dying for her moment right now because
Yes.
she was known as like the friend in Sweet Home Alabama. She was known as
Yes.
Coyote Ugly, right? Was she in Coyote Ugly?
Yes, I think so.
I think she was like
What I really remember is in Sweet Home Alabama, she says, "You have a baby in a
in a
bar."
bar. Yeah. But I
So
love
funny.
seeing that moment for her where like now she is just,
Yeah.
at the top of her game. And
Yep.
I definitely want to watch that because um I'm into things like that are
Yeah.
like not necessarily, it doesn't have to be a thriller. It can just be something that's like crazy and shocking and, even if it's like a little out there or
It's a
um
thriller for sure.
yeah, yeah. And I like cuz like I loved White Lotus. Did you watch White Lotus?
Yes. Yes. It felt like that was 2021, so I don't remember everything, but yes.
I watched it in 2022.
Okay.
So
Maybe I did watch it
it probably
then.
was 2021. I feel like my friends like I feel like my friend Tyler told me to watch it like probably 9 months before I actually did.
Yeah.
So it very well could have been
Maybe that's what
2021.
it was. Okay. Yeah. Yes, I did
But
watch it.
it's fresh in my mind because of the Emmys last night. So
Yes.
but like I loved that and it didn't necessarily have a like thriller aspect to it,
No.
but even without that thriller genre,
Mm-hmm.
it still had really good pacing and it was still really intense and I loved
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um
And
that
all
and
of the characters felt unique
so
and real.
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So amazing. And the cast was
Yeah.
fantastic and the writing
Yeah.
and I just loved it. I
Did you
loved
hear
it.
them talking about how they filmed that all during like the beginning of COVID? That's what they were saying on the Emmys.
Yeah.
Like they
What a
all
perfect
quarantined
setting.
together. Yeah. And just like made a kind of like it's almost like a bottle, like you know how bottle episode takes place in one place. It's
Yeah.
almost like a bottle show where like all of it took place just around a resort.
I've never heard that expression before.
Yeah. So most
I'm like, sure,
specifically.
yeah. No, but that's amazing. I've never heard that expression before.
Did you watch Breaking Bad?
No.
Well, never mind. There's literally an episode in there
The
that like when
final episode of our podcast, Kate just dumped
I'm
me.
like, never mind.
Never mind. Never mind about what I was gonna say, and never mind about this friendship. We're
Oh my
over.
gosh, that is too funny. Well,
No, I
there's an
didn't.
episode that like when people don't know what a bottle episode is, I'm always like, the fly episode in Breaking Bad, and everyone's like, oh yeah. So I thought for sure you would have seen Breaking Bad, but I was wrong.
There's, what I mean,
It's
I feel
okay.
like, I feel like there's a lot of highly praised shows that I
Hmm.
would totally love that I
Yeah.
just was not into at the time, I was
Hmm.
probably watching Riverdale.
It was the beginning. I don't think it was around then. I don't think.
Who
Because
knows what I was watching?
anyway,
It's
but
fine, but
it was one of the first
I
shows that
love that
I like
expression though.
binged because it
Hmm.
was like on Netflix was what kind of gave it its second wind and made it
Right.
even more popular. And it was the first show where like I think it was like the first drama, at least, because streaming was becoming a thing. Yeah, at that
Yeah.
point when I was in college. So
Yeah. I've
that's
definitely
what
heard
it was.
amazing things about it. You know,
Yeah,
like it's
it,
just
it
probably
is a
one of those
work of
shows
art.
I'll kick myself in the ass when I finally watch it and be like, why didn't you do
Yeah.
this earlier?
I rewatched
Um,
it when Better Call Saul came out,
mhm.
because Better Call Saul is basically a prequel,
Okay.
and it is a character that's Saul is a character in Breaking Bad, and so then I even went back and rewatched it a few years ago, and even rewatching it, I was like, this just is everyone who talks about it being one of the best shows that's been produced. They're right. There's just a lot that's right about it, but it's a commitment and it is a very sad and sobering show. So,
I'm
as a
into
mood
that.
watcher, you need to be prepared for that.
Well, I am a mood watcher, but I also like my comfort show, like my favorite show in the entire world,
Hmm.
and my comfort show is Euphoria.
Right.
So that gets really heavy. It gets really dark. It's very like emotional at times. And there are definitely some parts where it's very hard to watch. But like I
Yes.
said, like it's something
And
that I
it's actually
enjoy.
similar because some of the darker scenes are like drug related.
Yeah. And I definitely want to continue to watch Euphoria because I love it. But at the end of the day,
Hmm.
I can kind of expand my horizons and watch other things too.
Yeah.
Instead of just watching the first two seasons of Euphoria over and over and over again.
Over and over and over.
Like I don't know what to watch. I'm just gonna watch Euphoria. But yeah,
Right.
maybe I'll give it a shot.
Yeah. If you have downtime, a lot of downtime.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's definitely been some things that have come out recently that like I want to watch over and over and over again. But I
Hmm.
need to also I think number one on my list is gonna be Yellow Jackets. I think I'm gonna watch Yellow
Yeah.
Jackets
I think you
before
would
I
like that a lot.
before I commit to anything else.
And it's just one season.
Yeah.
So where Breaking Bad is like six, five
Yeah.
or six. I can't remember which one.
Because I am a mood watcher, but I'm also like sometimes I feel like I want one episode of a show
Yeah.
and to see if it's like something that I want to rewatch.
Yeah.
Or I'm like, I don't feel like watching a show. I want to watch a movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Just have it be done in about two
Just
hours.
one and done because tomorrow
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to like start a new show and then have like the next day be like, oh, I'm in the mood for something different now. And
That's a good
so
point.
sometimes it's just a movie.
Did you ever watch Only Murders in the Building?
No, that's on my list. I actually made a list as I was watching the Emmys
Uh-huh.
last night of shows that
Yeah.
were nominated or had won that I haven't watched yet that I
Yeah.
want to watch. So that's definitely on there.
Yeah. It's one of those that's like when you were talking about mood watching and how like sometimes you don't want to watch just something really dark. It is like it has obviously murders going
Murder.
on with it. But it's mostly the point of the show is mostly to be really goofy.
Mhm.
And it like it's a comedy and it's like, like your 25 to 30-minute episodes.
I like
So
that.
it's one where like it's not like, oh, it's one of my favorite shows of all time. But like last year when I had like a weekend morning where I was just like, I just want something that's like easy to digest but still entertaining, it was perfect for that. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed part 1 of this episode. If you did, make sure that you come back on Thursday for part 2. And don't forget to stay up to date with everything that we're reading and talking about on our Instagrams at Gare Indeed Reads and at the girl with the book on the couch. Links are also in the show notes, so make sure you follow.